The boy's name was Samuel. Everyone called him Sam. Sam didn't remember his parents' faces. He only remembered the gray walls of the St. Jude's orphanage. These walls were cold even in the summer. They seemed to suck the warmth right out of the air. Dinner was always oatmeal. No sugar, no salt, just a pale gray paste, the same color as the walls. The children sat on long wooden benches, silent. Rule number 1 at St. Jude's was to make no noise while eating. Mother Ilara hated noise. She said noise was the sign of an undisciplined soul. Mother Ilara was the one who ran this place. She was no one's mother. She was a tall woman with her hair in a bun so tight it pulled the skin of her face taut. Her eyes were a pale blue, cold as ice in a dry well. Sam always tried not to look into her eyes. The new boy's name was Leo. Leo didn't know the rules. He dropped his spoon on the stone floor. The sound of metal hitting stone echoed in the silent dining hall like a gunshot. Every child froze. Sam felt a chill run down his spine. He saw Leo bend down to pick up the spoon, his face bright red. Mother Ilara said nothing. She just stood up from her table at the head of the room. She moved very quietly. She wore soft-soled shoes that made no sound. She was like a ghost gliding across the floor. She stopped behind Leo. Leo still hadn't noticed. He picked up the spoon and was about to continue eating. Mother Ilara placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. Her hand was thin and bony. Her fingers were long and pale. Leo flinched. He looked up. Sam could see the fear starting to dawn in Leo's eyes. Mother Ilara smiled. Her smile never reached her eyes. It was just a twitch of her lips. "You made a noise, Leo," Leo stammered. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." Mother Ilara kept smiling. "I know you didn't, but indiscipline must be corrected. Perfection does not allow for mistakes." Her hand slid from Leo's shoulder down his arm. She took hold of his hand, the one holding the spoon. Leo tried to pull his hand back, but Mother Ilara's fingers tightened like an iron vice. She gently took the spoon from Leo's hand and placed it on the table. Then she held onto his hand. She looked at that small hand. She said, "This hand created imperfection. We must teach it." She used her other hand to take hold of Leo's pinky finger. Sam held his breath. He knew what was coming. He had seen it before with a girl named Sarah. Mother Ilara began to bend Leo's finger backward. Slowly, very slowly. Leo didn't scream. He just opened his mouth, his eyes wide with horror. A small, dry snap echoed. It wasn't as loud as the spoon falling, but in the silence of the room it sounded like thunder. Leo's pinky finger now pointed at a strange angle. It didn't look like a finger anymore. Mother Ilara let go of his hand. She patted Leo on the cheek. She said, "You see, now it is corrected. Discipline is beauty." She turned and glided back to her seat. Leo sat motionless. Tears began to stream down his cheeks. He didn't cry out loud. He just stared at his broken finger. Sam looked down at his bowl of oatmeal. He didn't dare look at Leo. He didn't dare look at anyone. He just tried to swallow the tasteless paste, but his throat had closed up. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. He lay on his hard bed in the communal dormitory. He could hear Leo's stifled sobs from the bed across the aisle. The sound was broken by trembling breaths. Sam wanted to say something. He wanted to say it would be okay, but he knew it was a lie. At St. Jude's, things were never okay. They only got worse. The next morning, Leo's finger was swollen and purple. He couldn't hold his spoon with his right hand. He had to use his left, spilling oatmeal on the table. Luckily, Mother Ilara wasn't there. She only appeared at dinner. The other meals were supervised by Sister Agnes, a fat woman with a blank face. Sister Agnes didn't care about small noises. She only cared that everything was cleaned up afterward. After breakfast, the children had to work. Sam and another group were assigned to scrub the main hall. The hall was long and dark, lit only by a few weak bulbs hanging from the high ceiling. The stone floor was cold under their bare feet. Sam used an old rag, rubbing back and forth over the worn stones. Leo was in the same group. He worked clumsily with one hand. He moved slowly, his face twisted in pain. An older boy named Mark pushed Leo. "You're too slow, cripple." Leo stumbled and fell. He put out his left hand to break his fall, but his injured right hand slammed hard against the stone floor. A scream of pain ripped from Leo's mouth. He couldn't hold it in this time. The scream echoed through the hall. Sam rushed to Leo's side. He saw that Leo's broken finger was now even more swollen, a dark purple that was almost black. Sister Agnes appeared at the end of the hall. The heels of her shoes clicked heavily on the floor. "What is this?" Mark pointed at Leo. "He fell. He's clumsy." Sister Agnes looked at Leo crying on the floor. She sighed wearily. "Get up." Leo tried to stand but couldn't. Sam helped him up. Sister Agnes stared at Leo's swollen hand. She said, "This needs Mother Elara's attention." She grabbed Leo's arm and pulled him away. Leo looked back at Sam, his eyes wide with panic. Sam could only watch as they disappeared down the hall, toward the area where the children were never allowed to go. It was the medical wing, or at least, that's what the sign on the door said. No one knew exactly what happened in there. The children who were taken there often never came back to the dormitory. Sometimes, a few weeks later, Mother Elara would announce at dinner that the child had been adopted by a good family. No one believed it. Sam went back to scrubbing the floor. His hands were shaking. He scrubbed at a stain only he could see on the stone floor. It was where Leo had fallen. Sam didn't see Leo for the rest of the day. He wasn't at lunch. He wasn't at the afternoon work session. When the bell rang for dinner, Sam felt a knot in his stomach. He walked into the dining hall, hoping to see Leo in his seat. But the seat was empty. Mother Elara sat at the head of the table, silent as always. She made no mention of Leo. Dinner passed in a tense silence. Sam could feel the fear from the other children. Everyone was thinking about Leo, but no one dared to ask. After dinner, as the children were lining up to return to the dormitory, Mother Elara stood up. She had an announcement. Her voice filled the room. "Leo has been very fortunate. A wonderful family heard about him. They came and picked him up this afternoon. He will have a new life, a warm home, and a great deal of love." Sam didn't believe a word of it. He looked at Mother Elara's face. She was smiling, that familiar smile. Her eyes were still cold. That night, the silence in the dormitory was even more terrifying than Leo's crying had been. It was an empty silence, a silence of loss. Sam lay in his bed, staring wide-eyed at the dark ceiling. He thought about Leo. He thought about the other children who had disappeared. Where had they gone? What really happened to them in the medical wing? A morbid curiosity began to smolder inside Sam. It was stronger than his fear. He had to know. He had to find out the truth. He waited. He waited until the even breathing of the other children filled the room. He waited until he heard the footsteps of Sister Agnes on her nightly patrol fade away. Then he silently slid out of bed. The floor was ice cold beneath his feet. He tiptoed past the other beds, careful not to make a sound. He reached the dormitory door. It was always locked from the outside, but Sam knew a secret. There was a loose floorboard in the corner of the room, just behind the old wardrobe. He had discovered it months ago when he accidentally dropped a marble. Underneath the board was a small crawl space that led to the staff hallway. Sam gently lifted the board. He squeezed through the narrow opening and put the board back in place. Now he was in the dark hallway. This hallway was narrower and dustier than the main one. The air smelled of damp and mold. Sam moved along the wall. His heart was hammering in his chest. He was heading toward the medical wing. He only knew the general direction from the last time he saw Sister Agnes dragging Leo away. He passed the kitchen, hearing the hum of the refrigerator. He passed the laundry room, smelling the strong scent of bleach. Finally, he reached a heavy steel door. On the door was a small, tarnished brass plaque. It read, "Medical Wing, authorized personnel only." The door had no handle on this side. It only had a small slot to look through. Sam took a deep breath and put his eye to the slot. At first, all he saw was a blinding white. The room inside was brightly lit, a stark contrast to the rest of the orphanage. His eyes slowly adjusted. He saw a room tiled in white from floor to ceiling. It looked more like a surgery than a regular clinic. In the middle of the room was a metal table. There were leather straps on the table. Nearby was a cart filled with stainless steel instruments. They gleamed under the lights. There were scalpels, there were pliers, there were saws, and there were things Sam couldn't recognize. They had strange shapes, curved and complex. Then he saw Mother Ilara. She was standing with her back to the door. She wore a thick leather apron like a butcher's. Her hair was still in its tight bun. She was focused on something on another table in the corner of the room. Sam couldn't see clearly what she was doing. He only heard a sound. A steady, rhythmic sound. The sound of a saw. A small, sharp saw cutting through something. Sam felt sick. He wanted to turn away. He wanted to run back to his bed and pretend he had never seen anything, but he couldn't. The curiosity held him in place. He had to know what she was doing. He tried to adjust his angle, trying to see over Mother Ilara's shoulder, and then he saw it. She wasn't sawing wood or metal, she was sawing bone. A small, white piece of bone held tightly in a vise. Next to the vise on a metal tray were other things. Sam recognized them. They were fingers, the small fingers of a child. They were laid out in a neat row. The blood had dried to a dark brown. Sam's heart stopped. He recognized the pinky finger. It was bent at that strange angle. It was Leo's hand. Mother Ilara was dismantling Leo piece by piece. She worked with the focus of a watchmaker. Every cut was precise. Every action was deliberate. Sam felt bile rise in his throat. He backed away from the slot, his hand clamped over his mouth to stop himself from gagging. He had to get out of there, immediately. He turned and started to run. He no longer cared about making noise. The horror had overwhelmed all caution. He ran down the dark hallway, the sound of his bare feet slapping against the stone floor. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he had to get away from that place. He ran past the laundry room, past the kitchen. He turned into another hallway he had never seen before. This one sloped downward. It led to the basement. He had no other choice. He kept running down the slick stone steps. The air grew colder and damper. The smell of mold grew stronger. Finally, he reached another hallway in the basement. It was almost completely dark. Only a little weak light filtered through tiny windows near the ceiling. Sam stopped to catch his breath. His lungs burned. He leaned against the cold wall, trying to calm himself. He had seen it. He had seen the truth about the children who were adopted. Mother Ilara wasn't sending them anywhere. She was using them. But for what? Why was she taking them apart? The question swirled in Sam's mind, and then he heard another sound. It wasn't the sound of sawing. It was a moan, a weak, long moan. It came from one of the doors along the basement hallway. Sam hesitated. Part of him wanted to run, but another part, the same part that had led him to the medical wing, was curious. He had to know what that sound was. He crept toward the door. The door was made of thick wood and had a large iron bolt. There was a small square window on the door covered with a thick steel mesh. Sam stood on his toes and looked inside. The room was dark, but his eyes were used to the darkness. He could see faint shapes inside. They were cages, small cages like ones for animals, and in one of the cages there was a person. Sam couldn't see clearly. He had to squint. It was a girl. Sam recognized her red hair. It was Sarah, the girl who had disappeared 2 months ago after breaking a plate. Mother Ilara had broken her index finger. Sarah was huddled on the floor of the cage. She wore no clothes. Her body was skeletally thin. But that wasn't the most horrible thing. The most horrible thing was her legs. They weren't legs anymore. From the knee down, they had been replaced with something else. Something made of metal and wood, intricately crafted. It was shaped like the hind legs of a goat, with backward joints and polished brass hooves. The new legs were attached directly to the remains of her own legs with screws and leather straps. The skin around the join was swollen and red. Sam stared, unable to believe his eyes. Mother Ilara wasn't just dismantling the children. She was reconstructing them. She was turning them into bizarre creatures, her own sick works of art. Sam felt his legs go weak. He had to hold onto the wall to keep from falling. He looked at the other cages. Most of them were empty, but in the last cage he saw something moving. It wasn't a child, it was bigger. It was standing in the shadows in the corner of the cage. Sam couldn't make out its shape. He could only vaguely see a tall, twisted figure, and he saw its eyes, two glowing red dots in the darkness, staring right at him. A primal fear Sam had never known washed over him. This wasn't fear of Mother Elara or Sister Agnes. This was a different kind of fear, a fear of things that should not exist. The thing in the cage began to move forward. It stepped out of the shadows. Sam finally saw it clearly. It had once been a boy, maybe Mark, the boy who had pushed Leo, but it wasn't Mark anymore. Its body was unnaturally tall and thin. Its skin was stretched tight and gray. Its arms had been elongated, the joints replaced with metal hinges, making them long enough to nearly touch the floor. The fingers had been removed. In their place were sharp razor blades about 6 inches long, but the most horrific thing was its face. Its mouth had been sewn shut with barbed wire. Its nose was gone, leaving only 2 holes, and its eyes had been removed. In their place were 2 red glass orbs, fixed tightly in the sockets. It was from these orbs that the red light glowed. The creature stood before the bars of the cage, looking at Sam with its glass eyes. It made no sound. It just stood there, breathing heavily. Then it raised one arm. The blades on its fingertips scraped against the iron bars, creating a piercing, screeching sound. Sam screamed. He couldn't hold it in anymore. He turned and ran. He ran up the stairs, stumbling several times in the dark. He didn't care. He just had to get out of the basement. He ran down the staff hallway, no longer caring who might hear him. He reached the loose floorboard. He lifted it and scrambled into the dormitory. He slammed the board back down and ran to his bed. He pulled the blanket over his head, shaking uncontrollably. He shut his eyes tight, but the image of Sarah with her goat legs and the creature with the red eyes was burned into his mind. He could hear the dormitory door open. He heard Mother Elara's soft footsteps. She was entering the room. Sam held his breath. He tried not to make any sound. The footsteps stopped right next to his bed. He could feel her presence. He could smell the faint scent of antiseptic on her. A long moment passed. Sam thought his heart would explode. Then he heard Mother Elara's voice, whispering right next to his ear. "I know you were there, Samuel. I know what you saw. Don't worry. You don't need to be afraid. You are very special. I have a wonderful plan for you, a true masterpiece." Her voice was full of a sick affection. Then the footsteps started again, leaving the room. The door closed. Sam lay there, paralyzed with fear. He knew he was next. He couldn't escape. Mother Elara had chosen him. He was going to be her masterpiece. The next few days passed in a haze of horror. Sam did everything like a machine. He ate his oatmeal, he scrubbed the floors, he followed every rule, but his mind wasn't there. It was trapped in the basement with the cages and the creatures inside. He avoided Mother Elara as much as possible. But he always felt her eyes on him, a waiting gaze, the gaze of an artist studying her block of marble before beginning to carve. Sam knew he couldn't wait to be taken. He had to do something. He had to escape. But how? The orphanage was surrounded by a high stone wall. The main gate was always locked. The windows on the ground floor were barred. He thought about the other children. Would anyone help him? But when he looked in their eyes, he only saw fear and resignation. They were broken. They would rather live in ignorance than face the terrible truth. Sam was alone. One night, about a week after his discovery, Sam decided to act. He didn't have a detailed plan. He just had a crazy idea. He wasn't going to escape from the orphanage. He was going to go deeper into it. He was going back to the medical wing. He didn't know what he was looking for. Maybe a weapon. Maybe another way out, or maybe he just wanted to face his fears one last time. He waited again until midnight. He snuck out of the dormitory again. This time his heart wasn't pounding with fear, but with a cold determination. He went straight to the medical wing. He didn't hesitate. He put his eye to the slot again. The room was still brightly lit, but Mother Elara wasn't there. The room was empty. The metal table in the middle of the room was clean. The instruments on the cart were neatly arranged. He tried pushing the steel door. It wasn't locked. Sam's heart beat faster. This was his chance. He gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air in the room was cold and smelled strongly of chemicals. Sam looked around. The room was sterile, not a single stain. He went to the instrument cart. He looked at the scalpels, the pliers, the saws. His hand touched a large pair of pliers, the kind he guessed was used for breaking bones. It was cold and heavy. Could he use it as a weapon? He heard a noise. It came from another door at the far end of the room, a door he hadn't noticed before. That door was slightly ajar. Sam grabbed the pliers. He tiptoed toward that door. He peeked through the crack. Inside was a small office. There was a large wooden desk, a leather chair, and towering bookshelves filled with old books. Mother Elara was sitting in the chair, her back to the door. She was talking. Sam couldn't see who she was talking to. There was no one else in the room. She was on the phone. Sam listened. Mother Elara's voice was different. It was no longer soft or affectionate. It was sharp and businesslike. Yes, specimen 17 is complete. The elongation of the arm bones was a success. Neurological response is stable. No signs of rejection of the optical implants yet. Initial compatibilities are very promising. Sam didn't understand everything she was saying, but he understood the words specimen and implants. She was reporting to someone. Someone else knew what was happening here. Someone else was behind all of this. Mother Elara continued. Specimen 18, the girl with the caprine leg structure, is having some issues with infection at the joints, but we will get it under control. Her potential for speed and agility is immense. She was talking about Sarah, then she said something that sent a chill down Sam's spine. Specimen 19 has been selected. It's a boy. Perfect psychological and physical condition, an ideal candidate for the next phase. We will begin the procedure tomorrow. She was talking about him. Sam tightened his grip on the pliers. He didn't have a tomorrow. He had to act now. Mother Elara hung up the phone. She sighed and stretched. Then she stood up and walked toward a bookshelf. She pulled out a book. Behind the book was not more books, but a small safe built into the wall. She turned the dial, opened the safe, and took out a thin file folder. She placed the folder on her desk and opened it. Sam squinted, trying to see what was inside. They were photos and detailed technical drawings of human bodies but altered. He saw a drawing of a person with wings made of skin and bone grafted onto their back. He saw another drawing of a person with 2 extra arms growing from their sides. And then he saw a drawing with a note at the top. Specimen 19, Samuel. It was a drawing of him, but in the drawing, his chest had been opened up. His heart and lungs had been removed. In their place was something that looked like a complex engine of brass and glass. Tubes ran from the engine to his limbs. His eyes in the drawing had also been replaced with complex lenses. Below the drawing was a line of notes. Perpetual energy source, maximum efficiency, the masterpiece. Sam felt a hot rage well up inside him. This anger drowned out the fear. She didn't just want to turn him into a monster. She wanted to erase him completely, to replace his humanity with a machine. He couldn't let that happen. He threw the door open and rushed into the room. Mother Elara spun around, surprised. Her face showed a moment of shock before it settled back into its usual cold expression. "Samuel, you're impatient, I said tomorrow." Sam said nothing. He raised the pliers and lunged at her. Mother Elara moved faster than Sam expected. She dodged to the side, avoiding his blow. The pliers slammed into the edge of the wooden desk, splintering the wood. She grabbed Sam's wrist. Her strength was incredible. Her bony fingers clamped down like steel. "What do you think you can do with this?" Her voice was mocking. "You're just a child, weak and stupid." Sam used his other hand to punch her in the face. The punch wasn't very strong, but it was enough to distract her. She loosened her grip slightly. Sam ripped his hand away and backed up. Mother Ilara touched her cheek. A small trickle of blood ran from the corner of her mouth. Her blue eyes darkened. Now she was truly angry. "All right, you want to play like a grown-up. Then we'll play." She lunged at Sam. Sam swung the pliers again. This time she didn't dodge. She caught the pliers with both hands. The two of them struggled. Sam used all his strength, but she was stronger. She slowly pushed the pliers toward him. The metal jaws were getting closer to his face. Sam could see his own distorted reflection on their polished surface. He was desperate. He was going to lose. And then his eyes glanced at the file folder on the desk, the drawings, her masterpieces. With a roar of fury, Sam let go of the pliers. Mother Ilara stumbled backward, off balance. Sam snatched the papers from the desk and threw them at an old oil lamp on the bookshelf. The lamp shattered. The oil spilled and caught fire instantly. The flames roared to life, spreading quickly to the dry books and the velvet curtains. "No!" Mother Ilara screamed. It wasn't a scream of anger, but a scream of real pain. My work, my designs. She forgot all about Sam. She ran toward the flames, trying to beat them out with her bare hands. She slapped at the burning papers, screaming as the fire licked at her flesh. Sam didn't waste any time. He ran out of the office through the medical wing. He knew the fire wouldn't stop. The entire old building would soon be engulfed in flames. He had to get out. He had to get the other children out. He ran toward the dormitory, screaming, "Fire! Fire!" The dormitory door burst open. Sister Agnes stood there, her face pale. "What is this?" Sam didn't answer. He ran inside and started shaking the other children awake. "Wake up! We have to get out! Fire!" The children panicked. They screamed and cried. Black smoke began to seep into the room from under the door. Sister Agnes tried to restore order, but it was useless. The children pushed and shoved each other, running in all directions. Sam grabbed the hand of a crying girl and pulled her along. "Come on, this way." He led her and a few other children to the loose floorboard. He lifted it and pushed them through. "Get out! Run! Don't stop!" He turned back to help the others, but the smoke was too thick. He couldn't breathe. His eyes were burning. He heard a crashing sound from the direction of the medical wing. The ceiling was collapsing. He knew he didn't have much time. He scrambled through the loose floorboard one last time. As he stood up in the staff hallway, he heard a roar. It wasn't the sound of the fire. It was the roar of a beast. It came from the basement. Sam knew the creature with the red eyes was loose. The fire had set it free. He had to go now. He ran down the hallway, trying to find a way out. He saw the flickering orange light from an unbarred window at the end of the hall, the laundry room window. He used the last of his strength and slammed into the door. He ran into the room, smashing the window with a wooden chair. He climbed out, falling onto the damp grass. He gasped for fresh air, coughing violently. He got up and looked back. The St. Jude's orphanage was engulfed in flames. The orange fire licked at the night sky. He saw the small figures of the other children running around on the lawn. They had made it out. Some of them had made it out. And then, from a broken window in the basement, a dark shape leapt out. It moved with unnatural speed on its long arms. The blades on its fingertips glinted in the firelight. It stood up straight, its red glass eyes scanning the area. It was hunting. Sam didn't wait to see what it would do. He turned and ran into the woods behind the orphanage. He ran without looking back. The screams of the children and the roar of the monster echoed behind him. But he didn't stop. He just kept running until his lungs felt like they would burst, running until the only sounds he could hear were his own heartbeat and the crunch of his feet on dry leaves. He didn't know how long he ran. When he finally stopped, it was almost dawn. He was deep in the forest. He was exhausted and trembling, but he had survived. He was free. He sat down, leaning against the base of a tree. He looked at his hands. They were covered in soot and scratches, but they were his hands, normal hands. He thought about Mother Ilara, consumed by the flames with her masterpieces. He thought about the creature she had created now roaming free. The world was not safer. It was probably more dangerous. But at least, he was out of his prison. Sam didn't know where he would go or what he would do. He only had the ragged clothes on his back. He had no money, no food, no one to turn to. He only had one thing, a memory. The memory of the horrible things human beings could do to each other. And that memory would haunt him forever. He stood up. He had to keep moving. He picked a random direction and started walking. He walked away, leaving the smoldering ruins of St. Jude's orphanage behind him, a scar on his past that he would never forget. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was his own. And for the first time in his life, Samuel felt a faint glimmer of hope. Hope that somewhere out there was a place without gray walls and cages, a place where he could just be a boy, not a specimen, not a masterpiece,